So here we go. Trent has spoken. And this has been one of the most drawn out, complicated issues. And I'm going to chuck something out there, and hopefully this will be, as ever, the community that will continue to have a discussion instead of just shouting at each other, or ideally not shouting at myself as well. Because I think, you could not make a video on this, but this is huge. This is huge news. This is one of the most enthralling players that the Premier League has seen in terms of a player who, when they have the ball near their right foot, dangerous things can happen. Like incredible things that can happen with one kick. And that's why he's so sought after. And that's why he's in the position where he can make this decision to leave Liverpool Football Club. So let's go through the statement here, because I think there's something here. I want to kind of like talk about, like, obviously on the pitch, off the pitch, the personal relationship. I think every football fan, and obviously in particular Liverpool fans, will naturally feel with this. My conclusion on that, and then we'll touch on, who could be hurt by this, because I think there's a player here that is going to surely feel the pinch a little bit, and it'll be, a new era. This is a new era for not just Liverpool and Trent, but one of their greatest players. So let's get into this, because I think it's really, really interesting what he says here. So after 20 years at Liverpool Football Club, now is the time for me to confirm that I will be leaving at the end of the season. So I think the way this is put together, I'm sure there'll be a lot of help that's kind of come with it. But hopefully, hopefully the sentiment comes from him, and what he's really trying to get across comes from him. And I think it does. And look, by God, he's had long enough to talk about it. And that is a question actually for you guys. Like, would that final game at Anfield, lifting the trophy, which is going to be brilliant regardless, right? When it was the right time to talk about it? Is it halfway through the season before you've even won the league? Could that have derailed anything? Or, is this the right week? It's done, it's dusted, you've won it. And now maybe there's that moment where look, this is how I feel. That's how you feel. It is what it is. Let's, but respect for everything you've done. I think this felt like the obvious time for kind of it to occur, right? Or could he have waited till the end of the season? Because I guess, if it does fall through with Real Madrid somehow, then he's, in a sticky situation here. Which, I mean, it feels like it's obviously done and dusted when it comes to that side of it. I think in terms of the timing of finally speaking, I think actually, despite the clamour for just make it obvious, make it clear, I actually think the truth is, if you make it clear, the people are going to get the answer. They're not going to get the answer they want, are they? So I actually think now is the time for him to speak on it. And I think for him to be able to dodge it, I think it all felt very, very obvious, of course. But once you've kind of gone down a road, sometimes you've got to commit to it. Now, this is easily the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. Again, sentence on its own. So hopefully he's trying to get that across. And I'm going to say that this is coming from him wholeheartedly, right? But I think obviously a bit of grammatical help, which by God, I can always use. I know many of you have wondered why or been frustrated that I haven't spoken about this yet, but it was always my intention to keep my full focus on the team's best interests, which was securing number 20. So again, I think acknowledging the fact that, and I guess that's, you sometimes wonder how like deluded Premier League players or, elite footballers could be. And obviously it would have been impossible for him to totally not know what's going on, but he obviously is super aware. And I think this season it would be interesting to see his reflections on this final season, because it's probably been very, very, very difficult to keep his mouth shut and to, keep calm and carrying on. I think that's a really, really tricky thing for him to do. This club has been my whole life, my whole world for 20 years. From the academy right through until now, the support and love I've felt from everyone inside and outside the club will stay with forever. But this is the important sentence, I think. Well, actually, it's these two. So this club has been my whole life. But that's kind of setting up this. I have never known anything else. And this decision is about experiencing a new challenge, taking himself out of my comfort zone, and pushing myself both professionally and personally. I've given my all every single day. From the bottom of my heart, I've been blessed enough to live out my dreams. So I think that's also an interesting sentence here, because I think the fact that he has succeeded the way that he has at Liverpool, I think that's a huge part in him being able to offer himself the variety. Because I don't think he thinks this is the right or wrong decision. I think it's just, from what I'm getting from this statement and how I'm kind of alluding to why you would leave Liverpool when they're as strong as they are, I think it comes back to, the variety of life, right? And I haven't known anything else. And it's like, is the grass greener? I think his eyes are open here. I think he knows the grass might not be greener. But I think, a fulfilling life is one with variety. And I think that's where he's at. Now, if you like this or don't like this, I think that's absolutely valid, right? And I think understandable as well, because I think in terms of everything you basically would want, there's an absolute angle for stay here, continue to be great, be happy here. But what he's done here is, and this is what I wanted to talk about, because I think this has been a really interesting one in terms of how should people feel, which I think is obviously quite a dangerous thing. All I'm putting forward here is my conclusions on what feels like the situation and what I think he's looked to do here. Now, first things first, I think it is a really personal decision, obviously for him to make, and heartstrings are being pulled at. It's not one where it's like, well, look, I played for QPR and now I've got a chance to play in the Premier League. I'm off, boys. Everyone kind of gets that. And I think there's a touch of that when it comes to it being Real Madrid, but it's not a huge jump, is it? It's not the same obvious pathway. So it's a personal decision. But again, that feeling from other fans, it's also personal from their point of view. What I think he's done here is he's chosen him instead of choosing the club. Now, again, your reaction to what I've just said there is dependent on how you want to look at it. From one side of it, you could go, he has chosen himself in terms of instead of serving Liverpool. So he wants to experience as many opportunities as possible. It's a short career, blah, 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 all those things. And I don't think he thinks it's a right or wrong decision. I think it's the only decision him and his gut could make. He's so through that, instead of going, I'm not doing what I should do, I'm being, call it selfish, call it empowered. It depends on where you want to sit on this, right? So he has chosen him over Liverpool. He's chosen what he feels is the right thing to do. And I think for him, and I don't know what decision I would make if I was in the same position. I do think the fact that he's won everything does make it a little bit easier for him. I think it does. But it still will be, a heartbreaking one for him. He will inevitably be in tears because he obviously is, he's not soulless. But I think he's chosen, as I say, I think he's chosen him. And I think in several scenarios, we look at that and go, do you know what? You've got to do what's right for you. And I don't think broadly, this is why I think this is a really interesting talking point, is because I think broadly, I don't think there is actually a right or wrong side of it. There's just what you believe to be right or wrong. Okay, like a lot of things in life. But he has chosen what he wants. It's what's pulling at him. This is pulling at him. And because he's ticked a lot of boxes, and I think it's how players feel these days, is like, how much can I squeeze out of life? That is the mindset. They want to be considered as good as they can be. Whereas I think in a previous generation, the team, the word brand just didn't exist. And I think the sort of byproduct of this brand is that you are empowered to make decisions for you, not kind of be subservient to whatever club that is. And I think that's just where we are now. And I think that is what's pulling at Trent here, is that if it goes well or if it doesn't go well, he will be kind of net up experience-wise because he will have seen over the fence. That's my take on it. On the pitch, I think one person that will really Of course, he won't struggle. He's going to be fantastic. And actually, he's continued to be fantastic this season. But over a larger data set, what will need to be resolved and solved is Mohamed Salah on that right-hand side, but not having Trent there. Now, those diagonal balls from Virgil, Canate, have solved it to a point. But over the long term, it'd be interesting to see, not having Trent there time and time again, would that hurt him in any way? That's just a question. And, in terms of what will come from Trent not being there anymore, look, Conor Bradley is sensational and very different to Trent. But, Trent's a really good player. And people are feeling this because, one, he's a Scouser. But two, because he's really good. He's really, really good. In terms of him so that's my take on it. I think it's one that's why I think this whole discussion has been so interesting, because it is based on your personal feelings on something as much as Trent. So let me know your thoughts on this. How are you feeling about Liverpool fans as we sort of head into those last few games, last few experiences of Trent in your side? And if you want to know how he would set up and play in possibly Real Madrid's team next season, we did a video on how Alonso will set up, and in that we looked at how Real Madrid under Alonso would set up with Trent. So if you want to check that out, click right here.